So we're eager today to hear what she has to share with us today. So I turn over Maureen Muldoon.
Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, thank you, Sherry. And thank you, Joni, and thank you, Richard, and thank you, Lisa. Sherry's on our board, and Richard is a teacher of A Course in Miracles. Joni's a technical, Lisa Kozak is the woman who, did I say her name incorrectly? Lisa. Sorry, thank you, Lisa Chozak. Lisa, you think I'd know your last name by now. I'm a namer. But there's so many people in our community, and that's what we are. We're a community, you know. And I got to, I just first of all welcome everybody, and thanks for being here. And I got to really see what our community was this weekend, because we're up here on Madeline Island. I have no idea why I'm crying, but we're up here on Madeline Island with the board, and we were talking about our community. And this is a spiritual community that is in the business of loving humans. That's a really hard business. To be in the business of loving humans on behalf of God, because we sometimes only see ourselves as half of God and not wholly. And so we project this onto each other. You know, the God part is easy. And it's easy to love God because God is so holy, but humans are like, you know, tricky because they're like puzzle pieces, and they come in odd shapes and angles and inherited ailments and illusions of wants and character defects and, you know, greed and jealousy and anger that just flares up and pops out. This is us. We're human, you know. We come with like tough issues and tragedies that we've come through and tender spots. And our role is to help provide a pathway back to our own sanity and liberation and ultimately happiness, you know, not by coaxing, not by fixing, not by seducing, but ultimately by embodying. That's what we're here to do, to help shine the light for others just by embodying it for ourselves. And plus, spiritual community comes with more than just the business of loving humans on behalf of God, but bank accounts and budgets and websites and wordings and curriculums and classrooms and classrooms and classrooms and classrooms. And, you know, I thought that 4 days for us to be together on this island to help steer Speakeasy in our next year would be enough time. I'm not sure if we even accomplished an inch of what we had hoped to do, but we did do our best, and we did follow the prompts of love. And we did sit quietly in the presence of Christ and allowed ourselves to first be blessed, because we cannot give what we do not have. And we attempted to make our minds still like pools of water. We were directed and ready to receive whatever thoughts Christ was hoping to bestow. And we attempted to rest in the sufficiency of that Christ consciousness. If you're new here and you're thinking, what's this Christ conversation? What is this Christ word? It's simply another name for light. That's all Christ is. And so we sat in the stillness and the light, and we brought up our concerns and our challenges, not to worry or to burden ourselves with processes or pressures, but to simply attempt to turn all of that over to the light. And when we wanted to hold on tight to something or a way that we had been, we attempted to let go. And when we wanted to speed things up and get through it, we attempted to slow down. And there's no hurry, you know, because all that's good and beautiful and holy will grow at an elegant and organic pace. And as my Holy Spirit told me a few years back on this very island, when I was reminded of the invitation a few days ago when I was on one of the lessons with our Miracles Live 365 group, Linda Fasachki reminded me that when I was in meditation one time up here on the island, that the prompt that I got was, the more you surrender, the more you'll remember. And so it really is a surrender game, because, you know, after all the forgiveness is done, the only thing left to do is to remember that we are the royalty in the kingdom of God. That's at least what it said from one of the readings we did from Jesus Calling. So we're Christ and this is heaven. Basically, that's the Cliff Notes. You are Christ, this is heaven. And so in our remembering, we also decided to take some time to swim naked in the lake and to sing our prayers instead of just saying them. And yeah, we went shopping to the store that has no price tags. And if that's not heaven, I don't know what is. So I wanted to take a moment to thank them the board members who came miles, to join us on the island, Mary Keenan and Sinead Ryan, and came from Ireland, and Regina Vertico and Mari D'Alessio and Bella Gordon from Chi-Town, and Sherry Ransom plugged in with us via Zoom. That was really great to be able to get that time together. And I also wanted to thank my own ancestors, especially my husband's family, who, purchased this land and then handed it over to his daughters and daughters-in-law. This land has always been and held in ownership by women. So that's kind of special. And to my mother-in-law, who, although she couldn't afford to actually have a home, she couldn't also let this land be sold off. And so instead of purchasing her first home with her husband, she just, took up the payment on this house, and they could only visit it a couple of months out of the year, but it told me and tells me about the sacredness of this land. And she, like the Ojibwe people who also made their pilgrimage to this land, they called and claimed this island their spiritual home many generations ago as well. And so we stand on this very fertile soil when we stand on Madeline. And they all came for the same reason, and the same reason that you came here today. They came, we came, you came looking for soul food. That's an inhale of the sacred and an exhale of some stillness. And we can't purchase it, and we can't shop it away, and we can't silence it with food and drugs and drink. And we can't chase it out with illusions of dramas and traumas, although we're going to try. But we all must come to the point where we lay down all of our distractions and murder all of our mistresses, and then just come with open hands to our God. And for most of us, we get to that point through a pain point or through a hunger, searching, starving for our soul food. And the story of the Ojibways, it said that Grace Spirit came to them and told them to keep walking to their spiritual path, keep walking to their spiritual destination, and that they would find their spiritual home when they finally arrived at the place where food grew on water. And some say that the food that they found was wild rice, but that just makes me laugh, because wild rice? I mean, I don't think Spirit serves up wild rice. Nothing against wild rice, but I'm too much of a mystic to go blind to the obvious, because the food that walks on water is Christ. And we've heard about that. Light dancing on water. Christ is light. Light dances on water. And you've seen it yourself, the marvel and awe that we call these diamonds, these shimmers, these sparkles, this light, meaning life. And it just, just to unfold the mystery a little bit more, this Christ walked amidst the apostles, and we are amidst the apostle islands. And what does apostle mean? It means one who is sent off, like the sparkles that have been sent off, like the diamonds that have been sent off from the sun. The apostles were sent off to carry this light, just as you and I are sent off to carry this light. We're sent off to be light workers. And here in the middle of these apostle islands, this Christ light dapples in the forest, and it dances on the pristine waters, and like white horses rushing to the shores, as our Irish sisters suggested. This light warms the rocks of the shores of Madeline, where a naked Mary stands like a Venus in a half shell, and Christ delights in it all. So the spirit in the island is palpable, and it's no surprise that we're drawn here to these shores like wild horses. And of course, these holy lands, the freckles on the face of the very queen herself, and the queen is Lake Superior, or I like to call her Mother Superior. This inland ocean that's pure medicine, waters so holy that they make you want to sing. Mother Superior, burn down, burn out, burn it bright, sore eyes restored upon your side. A holy home of blessed light, take us away from the fray of the way that the world is today. The priests and pirates, poets come, there's gospel here for everyone. Skies are vast and our waters deep, she has promises to keep. We gather round her sacred fire, add our voices to the choir. And that's exactly what we did. We sipped in the nectar of the land like frenetic hummingbirds seeking our soul food. Speakeasy Community is an extension of this sacred elixir. This island and our spiritual community are connected. They're both a haven of great soul, a place to find soul food. This place, these spaces call us to follow in the footsteps of a passionate Mary Magdalene, to seek and to find and to follow Christ, to seek and to find and to follow light, to remember that we're the embodiment of that light as well, and to delight in the discovery over and over and over again, as the Ojibways knew, as my mother-in-law knew, as this community knows, that it ain't a community if it ain't got soul. And so we want to talk to you today about soul food. And I want to share how to heal a spiritually anorexic life. And I want to tell you a story and a song and share a recipe that might not only feed the soul, but then eventually free the soul, because we're not just here to feed the soul, but actually free the soul. And I know that I seem to be telling you about this place instead of, the grace of God, but I've come to realize that they're all one and the same. That is all one and the same. Why? Because God speaks to us in every moment, from every place, from every space. You right now are standing on your own fertile soil. There are, though, seems like some places, spaces, some faces that just make it a little easier to see her. And there are some places and spaces and faces where she can't be contained and you can see the soul peeking out at you. I don't know if you've had that experience, but I have that experience. And last year I really had it when I happened to be on this island experiencing love at first sight. And it was with this face of this ancestor, one of those Ojibwe faces. And there was this powerful man, a chief of some sort, surely a community leader himself. I could feel him staring at me out of the corner of my eye. And when I turned to look at him, I lost my breath. It was a painting of an indigenous man. And the painting was resting on the floor, leaning against the wall of this gallery. And the artist who painted it happened to be present in that moment, which is really, really rare, because I'd been staring at this man's artwork for as long as I've been coming up here, maybe 30 years. And I had never met him before. And he was there that day doing a demonstration of his work. He lived miles away, but he happened to be there. And I came up to him and I began to question him about this painting, this piece. And I asked him, about this painting, because I had seen him paint all kinds of things before, buffaloes, broken down cars, boats, but never, ever, ever had I ever seen him paint a person's face. And I was in awe of it. And he said, it's true. It's really rare. I hardly do. And I said, what is this piece called? And he said, a name of a chief. And I know it sounds weird, but when I looked at the painting, I felt like I was having a Holy Communion. And in the midst of the series of Course in Creating, there's a nod to the idea that when you create something in love, the fingerprints of your creations of love continue to carry through all of your art. And so I said to him, God, when I look at it, I just feel so much soul. And he said, well, then I think I will rename it The Soul. And to that, I replied, if you do, I'll purchase it, which kind of shocked me more than him, because I've never purchased a piece of artwork that didn't come from the Salvation Army. It's just not in my budget. And I didn't know how that was going to happen after I made that promise out into the world. It was just hanging there. But then something magical happened. My friend Regina Vertico, who also happened to be there at the time, she somehow arranged for The Soul to be purchased as a gift to me on our 10th anniversary of serving this community, which happens in November. Now, I know that that's just the painting is just a symbol. I know that the island is just a symbol. I know that this community is just a symbol. But for now, it says in the Course that we're supposed to work with symbols. And if you're hearing me speak and you're able to hear beneath the words, the symbols of my words, if you don't know what symbols are or the meaning of that, and you want to know more about how to work with symbols, then it might be your own soul calling that it's time for you to sign up for Miracles Live 365. And because you might not get to Madeline Island, but to see that picture of the soul, but you could wake up every morning in spiritual practice with spiritual community, and you could watch firsthand as women and men walk on water. I see it every morning. So on the faith of the fumes of the work that we did this week, and with great gratitude for that gift of the soul, I just want to thank you if you contributed to that gift. And if you're someone who donates to the community in any way, if you show up to this conversation, if you put your cameras on, if you tithe, if you share your talents, your treasure, as Lisa was saying, if you share your voice, if you're one of those bright, shiny, early up, contributors, I want to say thank you. And I love you and thank you. And if you're someone who was never given, if you're somebody who hangs off camera and you never share your truth or your time or your talents, and if you're one who just comes to receive, I want to say thank you. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. And if you're somebody who comes to just plot and polarize or criticize and complain, if that's what you're up for, if that's what you're into, if you come to compare, if you're jacked up on jealousy or dozing off in a stupor of your own delusions and the addictions of your own dramas, what I really want to say to you is thank you. I love you. I love you. And thank you. You're part of me. You are part of me and I am part of you. And so we walk each other home. And although I started this community, and suppose that's why I am the one who got the painting, I'm really just a friend among friends. And I truly hope to aspire to be a good friend. That's my sole purpose here, to be a good friend. And it's not always easy because people want me to be more or less than that. People get intimidated by me because they project a lot of stuff on me, strange things, about authority and lack and scarcity. And it's okay. I don't even mind. I really don't. That happens in friendships. Sometimes things get rough and we can oddly and unconsciously crush each other. But the wine that comes from crushing, if it is done with the awareness that there is love under it, is so beautiful. I've been crushed, we've all been crushed. And it happens in friendships. Sometimes it gets rough and we endure. And Speakeasy is just like that. It'll give you 100 reasons to stay and grow. It'll give you a few thousand more to leave. And this is community. It's alive. It's not stagnant. It is true friendship, which ebbs and flows. True friendship. Think about your friendships. They're not stagnant. They come and they go. And why? Because that's part of the classroom, to crush our codependencies. Good friendship is some of the most nurturing of soul food. And Speakeasy, aside from being a creative catalyst, aside from being a vortex of awesomeness, aside from being a deep well of conversation and inspiration, it's simply and profoundly a place to find a friend. If you have found a friend here at Speakeasy, I'm going to invite you to share that during our conversation. Who's your friend and why, and what that friendship has been in regards to your own soul food. A place that breeds and bakes friendships and connections is a very sacred place worth caring for. So this past week, we devoted many hours to listening to how we care for the soul of Speakeasy. Through prayer and practice, we got to connect with the soul calling of Speakeasy and the divine vision for our future without saying too much. The direction was quite beautiful and inclusive and expansive and elegant and empowering and exciting and, above all, easy. So basically, mostly more of the same, but even more empowering and more inclusive. And just like Lisa started this off, inviting you to share your voice, that's the direction, really inviting people to show up as leaders and supporting those leaders and supporting those teachers. So there was also a talk of my taking a short sabbatical in the new year, and for plans to support and highlight some of the other amazing teachers of our community. And these teachers can also be called friends with benefits, I like to say, because we get to wake up with most of them. And where once there was just me, now we do have this vibrant community of teachers, community of friends, like the beautiful Bella Gordon and the anchoress herself, who proved that to us today as she anchored us in prayer. And the cool, conscious Queen Regina with her, she's our resident cat lady. You can't see her without her cats. And our mighty small songstress of Mari, and, the stoic and sacred Sherry Ransom, who happens to have a bottomless bag of gifts that we still haven't tapped. I mean, there's just so much there. Every time you ask her a question, she's like, by the way, I've done that. It's this ever available flow of stewardship. Megan Lastman, if you've ever taken a class with her, she just leaves you feeling lit up. And Elizabeth Keats is so gracious and generous. And Richard Ocean, wild and whimsical. And the dynamic, amazing fucking Dove Fishman. I mean, how do we get him in our community? He just embodies the course. and the jubilant hosting of Joni Strickfaden, who's always ready to throw a parade on the party, and her technical abilities to follow us through. I mean, we're really blessed here. And there's more. There's too many to even mention, because our community is a community of empowered people, not docile damsels, but teachers, not like other communities maybe that you've been in where there's one vantage point and you get what you get and you don't get upset. This is a community of way showers, of healers, practitioners. Cheryl Pauchat from Canada, Brenda Maria from Ireland, Amy Anderson from Canada, Mary Kesmerick from Northern California, an amazing teacher, Rose Mulroney down in Texas, Sherry Cunningham from Florida, Lynn Johnson in Colorado. If you join into this community, you have an underground railroad of friends. There's the creative genius of Maureen Claffey. She teaches on Sundays, the dynamic enthusiasm of Linda Fasachki. I mean, I don't know a lighthouse who's more well lit than her. Paula Lawton is just joining us. So literally, there's actually too many teachers to mention. It's an embarrassment of riches. And all of these teachers are facilitators of A Course in Miracles. They're the heart and soul of our community. They are the soul. They are the soul. When I look at that picture of him, I think of them. These are the people who help me. These are the people who help me to lean into my own spiritual purpose, people who challenge me, people I challenge. That's what friendships do. We support each other. We honor the soul by honoring our heart path. And because we do, we get to watch each other, rise and shine. People are healing and connecting and creating and ascending in the most magnificent ways. And if you've been in this community for any duration of time, I'm sure that it's true for you as well. So to support your own growth and vision, to help you honor your soul and invest in your soul food, I'm going to ask you 3 questions that we asked ourselves this weekend. And the first one is to look at your roots, how far you have come. Think about like when you first started arriving, maybe in this community, or when you first began to look or seek for food that grew on water. When you first started your journey to seek for light, who were you and what was the pain point or the vision that was pulling you forward? And who inspired you on your way? Your ancestors, your teachers, your sponsors and coaches, your therapists and friends, who came to walk with you? And now maybe take a moment to look at who you'd like to become still, and what's the calling of your own soul, the concepts that have not yet reached full fruition, they're still seeking to be known and honored. That's what we did this weekend for Speakeasy. We looked at who we had been as a community. We looked at our stories. We looked at our inspirations, definitely 12th Step and a little splash of the Quakers and a ton of Course in Miracles and absolutely Divine Mother. And we looked at who we were ready to become as a community. And we began as a community here in Chicago called Sanctuary. And Sanctuary was this time in our beginning where we were just holding space for like the spiritual nomads among us who had no spiritual home, like me, the divorcees and the drug addicts and those who had been rejected because they identified as, LGBTQ. We were the religious ragtag, the religious ragamuffins, you might say, gathered, and we decided that we were actually worthy of a Sunday morning celebration. We weren't leopards, we weren't untouchable, we were holy and deserving, and we didn't need to apologize or confess or change or hide or abort ourselves to attempt to fit into a spiritual community. So we came together and we found Sanctuary where we could be safe and we could be also exactly who we were here to be. And then after that, we did find our voices, and we found that our gospels were not actually found in any published text altogether, but actually more likely written on our personal stories, our experiences, our strength, and our hope. That's where the real money shot was. And we began to laugh more and fear less, and we began to forgive ourselves for thinking something went wrong. And the guilt was replaced by gaiety, and creativity bloomed, and there was once stagnation. We now had a garden, and we woke up to our inner storytellers and our singers and our dancers, our movers, our shakers, and we became more of an intuitive tribe, understanding the value of the silence and the stillness and checking in with your internal teacher. And we created our own coming of age ceremonies. Like that happened. We have this thing called Maiden Voyage, and we celebrated and we blessed babies, and we met and married our lovers, and we found friends, and we changed our names. which happens when you're on the spiritual journey. Beth became Bella, and Jeannie became a Johnny, and Mia returned to Brenda Maria, and Sanctuary became Speakeasy because that's what we were doing. We were just speaking easily. And we continued to grow and thrive, and we faced our fears and our blind spots. And we still had one major blind spot amongst us. Nobody was really talking about it. We weren't ready to really confess this one blind spot. It was too tender a truth. It almost felt too hard to even speak of. We didn't have the vocabulary. I know I didn't. I had many practitioner sessions over this thing that wanted to come to light. And it was a confession of sorts. And it was a confession that we wanted our mother, and that she had somehow gone missing and banished, buried. We weren't really sure, but we were sure enough, and we were strong enough, and we were sacred enough to begin to call her back. And so after years of sitting in pews that honored the widow father God, we called her. We did, and we claimed her as our own. And we began to honor then the Father, Mother, God, and we called her Divine Mother, and we tucked our chin to a softer side of God, and her gender hit some notes in our hearts that hadn't yet to be hit, and ushered in so much patience and gentleness and kindness. And this was a diet that I, like many here, didn't believe we had the palate for, and maybe sometimes even allergic to this patient, gentle side of God. And now we've come to grow a tolerance for this tender sweetness that seems to almost fall off the bone, this unconditional gaze of the divine Godmother, the grand Godmother God. And so we close out this divine decade in a time to ask again, like, who will we be in this community of friendship? Spirit says, to me, it's time to allow your soul to be devoured by all that you are, to just devour all that you are and truly transform yourself into an instrument of love. And I know that I'm not alone on that invitation. Like, we're all designed to be instruments of God's love. And if we do that, then we have a really cool community of what you'd call an orchestra and a choir of angels. So I'm going to close out with a meditative prayer and then a song, and hopefully it will lead you into your own inquisition of who you want to be in community. And this little prayer was something that we stumbled upon in the book, Calling Jesus. And it simply said, sit quietly in my presence. So if you're here, just take a breath and close your eyes and sit quietly. Sit quietly while I bless you. Make your mind like a still pool of water, ready to receive whatever thoughts I drop into it. Rest in my sufficiency as you consider the challenges this day brings. But do not wear yourself out by worrying about whether you can cope with the pressures. Keep looking to me and communicate with me as we walk through this day. Take time to rest by the wayside, for I'm not in a hurry. A leisurely pace accomplishes more than hurry or striving. When you rush, you forget who you are and whose you are. Remember, you are royalty in my kingdom. I am the mother maker. I am the Shakti of the earth quaker. I am the church. This is my steeple. Love is the way I create my people. This is my altar, my holy vortex. Joy is my gospel. No time for regrets. No time for regrets. Enter my holy, whisper my sweet prayer, recite my rosary, wash off your false fear. This is my sacred, my holy secret. Honor my brilliance, I'll let you keep it. I'll let you keep it. Now, just like all songs sung are twice as powerful, soul food shared is 10 times more nurturing. So although we're going to ask you to share your prosperity in our giving statement, I'm going to invite you to share your soul food. If you have been fed by this community or any message of Speakeasy, now is the time to subscribe, to devote, to stand up, to show up, to speak up. Subscribe, to our YouTube channel. Share the message with your friends. You've posted pictures of your cats and your broken toes and all of those funny meals that you've eaten. But now it's time to share your soul food. Don't fear. Don't fear what people will think of you. Don't fear each other. Don't compete with each other. Just help each other. You're here to carry the light, to send your light across the waters. You're here to play your part, to carry the light of love to the world. And that's the word.